everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. We have a fantastic show for you this week. It is that time of the month where we do a deep dive into one of our favorite labels, Kino Lorber, Kino Studio Classics, all their various imprints, everything that has been released, that we've received at least since the last recording. There's a lot of great titles that have been coming out or will be coming out in the next few weeks that I'm really excited to dive deep into. So I'm going to do just that. But first, just a small warning. We have a special guest that's not supposed to be on camera, unless things go horribly wrong. My dog is sitting at my feet. He's not usually here. So if you hear some random rustling or something, it is just that big boy sprawling out. So just FYI if you hear anything in the audio. But first, I'm going to dive right into one of my favorite titles from this month. That is Sudden Death with Jean-Claude Van Damme. It is the Peter Hyams action classic that can most concisely be described as Die Hard at a hockey game. It is Jean-Claude Van Damme trying to protect his children and a group of spectators from a terrorist plot that is going on inside this hockey arena while there's a hockey game playing. This group led by Powers Booth, who is deliciously evil and fantastic at playing a villain. Just him trying to make demands of the vice president that is being held and stuff. So it is a really tight, really fun, just kind of action tale of just Jean-Claude Van Damme skillfully taking out henchman by henchman, working his way up to the main bad guy. There's some twists and turns of just like people who may or may not be bad, all that kind of good stuff. And the kids are surprisingly not super annoying. There's actually some good emotional moments as he is trying to be a good father. He's trying to make up for some deficiencies in the past, that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of heart in there and then some great action. And just like there's a wild sequence where Jean-Claude Van Damme's character gets in that hockey game and gets like mistaken for an actual player. It's fantastic. I love that so much. It's a lot of great fun. It's probably my favorite Van Damme movie I've seen to date. I'm by no way a completist, but this one's a lot of fun. And I was glad to see it in 4K. I had never seen it before, and it looks great. It's from a 4K scan of the original camera negative in Dolby Vision. It's a 16-bit scan. You have a 5.1 track and a 2.0 track. It does come with a commentary track and archival interviews and behind the scenes features. But this looks really good. The encoding for this one is pretty solid compared to what sometimes we've been getting from Kino lately. This is a pretty solid encode. And I think it stands head to head for what we got with like Hard Target a couple of years ago. So if you're a Van Damme fan, Sudden Death, a lot of fun. I think they treated this one really well. And from what I've heard from the previous Blu-ray, it's a nice upgrade. So the new Blu-ray is also from the same 4K scan. So even if you're not 4K capable, it might be worth it just to get that new Blu-ray here as well. So worth checking out for action fans, Van Damme fans, all that. Staying in the world of 4K, I'm going to go on like kind of an art housey like film history run. My first is Jean-Luc Godard's Alphaville. This is Godard's kind of foray into sci-fi storytelling. It's looking into the future of like kind of dystopian, government being controlled, people's actions and emotions being governed. There's like a entity with like a computer like distorted voice that's running things a lot of the time. It's just very like dystopian, and like it's a world very much like ours. It's not like going overboard in like the kind of like the sci-fi aspects of things, but just kind of the government control aspect of things. It works really well. It's a really interesting story, and just seeing how all this plays out. Godard, he's working with material that's just very thoughtful and executed very well, and I liked it quite a bit. So This comes from a Studio Canal restoration. It's a 4K scan of the original camera negative. It is in Dolby Vision, and you get a commentary track, a 5-minute interview, an intro, and this in French and English, the original French and English. So if you're a fan of Godard, Alphaville has been treated very well. I do not have the previous Blu-ray of this one, but from what I can tell, I think it's the accompanying Blu-ray in this. It looks very good, but I think this is just a kind of a nice upgrade from that. So if you're a big fan and you have the Blu-ray, maybe it's worth the upgrade. I'm not sure if it's a night and day upgrade, but it is a nice upgrade. So Godard fans, Alphaville, it is treated very well. Staying with kind of like the famous auteurs, we have Jean-Pierre Melville's Bob Le Flambeur, which is Bob the Gambler. This is one of his early efforts about a gambler who he's kind of known around town. He's kind of notorious for just like he's beloved, but also just he's known just to kind of be into a little bit of everything. And he has a past that he's trying to get past in the present, but he kind of gets in a situation where he agrees to be part of like kind of this heist to rob this casino during this really important day where there's going to be a lot of money there, and how that eventually plays out, where he's trying to like get all of his contacts together to get this underway, and just like how his proclivities for gambling both hurt and help him at various times. You will see with a lot of Melville tales, because I have another one right after this, there's a lot of just kind of like morality at play, double crossing, happenstance, dealing with human nature, all that kind of stuff. That is very interesting. So Bob the Gambler, Bob Le Flambeur, it does come from a 4K restoration from Studio Canal. I think I already showed this off, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to do it double check. This is a SDR presentation, not high dynamic range, but standard dynamic range. So if you have the Blu-ray, even more so than usual, you might really need to kind of look inward about how much of an upgrade this might be for you. If you don't see very obvious upgrades from like Blu-ray to 4K at all times, if you're not that person who sees the big upgrades, then maybe a SDR upgrade that doesn't have like the high dynamic range being implemented, that'll probably be even less noticeable. It is a nice upgrade, but I know a lot of people feel very passionately about HDR, so the lack of it here, I think, is kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people, but it is the best that this movie looks on 4K or on physical media. So if you want to have it just looking its absolute best, the 4K of Bob Le Flambeur is definitely the way to get it. So you do get a commentary track and a 26-minute documentary in terms of special features that kind of just round out this package in a really nice way. So Studio Canal did a nice restoration, and the 4K in SDR does look very nice. A couple years later, Melville would return with Les Doulos. So I believe that roughly translates to The Informant. This is Jean-Paul Belmondo playing a man who is freshly out of prison, getting back into town and kind of getting wrapped up in kind of a criminal element. And it's a very twisty story with a lot of people like getting in contact with old comrades who may not be as good of friends as he thought, or maybe they're just kind of motivations happening at different points. There are people motivating these criminals to not live a criminal lifestyle and try to like get over certain biases and revenge fantasies and all that kind of stuff, because it really just shows in this tale that like a plot for revenge really doesn't usually work out for anybody. But I like how this kind of plays out. Of the two Melville tales, I think this is the more assured effort over Bob Le Flambeur. But they're both very good. They're from an iconic filmmaker, and his work is just really worth exploring. If you're a fan of his, you might know that earlier this year Les Samurai was put out by Criterion 4K as well. So if you just want to keep continuing to snatch up all the Melville, you can go get that Criterion disc. So another 4K restoration from Studio Canal in SDR, so similar to Bob Le Flambeur. No HDR, but still it's a nice, consistent presentation. I've talked about on past Kino videos that in mostly this year, or the past year or so, Kino has switched authoring houses, and the results have been a little bit mixed, to say the least. They still do a lot of great work, but there are titles where sometimes this just, you wish they would hire someone else for an authoring house. But what we've noticed here is that SDR presentations seem to be the ones that they handle the best in terms of 4K. So while people might bemoan the lack of HDR, you can kind of celebrate the fact that it usually results in a better encode, and this does look fantastic encoding wise, and it is the best that I've seen it look on physical media. And so if you're a fan, definitely check it out. It does have a commentary track, 30-minute interview, and a 33-minute documentary in terms of special features. So Melville fans, Les Doulos and Bob Le Flambeur, both worth checking out. Leaving 4K for a little while, I'll be back, there's plenty of great titles, is the Blu-ray debut of The White Dawn with Warren Oates, Timothy Bottoms, and Lou Gossett. This is a tale of a group of, this is the reversible cover art, a group of explorers in the early 1900s, I think, or late 1800s, who are, and you can kind of see where the original artwork is under there, who kind of get lost in kind of like the Arctic territory and get kind of rescued and nursed back to health by the native people, the Inuit people, and not in a way exactly like Dances by Wolves, but kind of similar, just kind of getting immersed in the culture and being kind of invited to kind of participate in their ceremonies and all that kind of stuff, and really start to become enmeshed in the kind of the group, with some people within the group not really jiving with this. The chief is overall pretty cool with it for most of the time, and then there's people that are very much not cool with it, and this leads to conflict, especially it's interesting how they treat their women and how they're not overly protective of them, and they kind of share with everyone, and it's a whole thing. It's pretty delicately handled, but it is also pretty intense. There are, for what appears to be real life animal cruelty in terms of like hunting for like seals and stuff. If it's not real life seal hunting or walrus hunting or anything like that, it is very believable. So just a trigger warning for those who are sensitive to that kind of like animal harm and stuff. Be aware of that there are some depictions of that are, if not real, which I think they are very, very realistic, so it might be a little bit hard to handle. In terms of the movie, I think it's pretty good. It's not a knockout, but I think it works well for what it's trying to do. I just think it could have been tightened up a little bit. It is pretty long. It's like an hour and 50 minutes. I think it could have been shortened. But overall, especially like the Warren Oates, he always plays like a interesting kind of like bad-ish guy. To see him kind of in this role, it's worth checking out. This does come from a 4K scan of 35mm original camera negative. It looks good, but not fantastic due to, I believe, how it was originally filmed. This was filmed kind of on location in kind of like an Arctic territory situation. And those kind of outdoor shots, they look pretty gritty still. You can tell this was given a restoration, but there's still lots of like nicks and like spots here and there that when you're looking at a 4K scan, you might not expect that level of wear and tear. But I think this is the best that this material can look given the condition of it. So it looks good, but just kind of be aware that the source limitations don't allow it to just like spotless. But you do get an audio commentary track, an introduction, 2 featurettes that run 17 and 10 minutes long. So if you've been waiting for this, The White Dawn, it's a good presentation that for a film that's kind of been out of kind of the limelight for a while and kind of hard to track down. My next film is one that I was interested in, even though a lot of people were shitting on it preemptively on the announcements. That is Chains of Gold with John Travolta. Just because I'm a John Travolta fan. He has his problems, but overall I like seeing him in movies. And this was kind of during one of his kind of slumps. I We got Hector Elizondo here, who I love so much. I wish they could have gotten him for some kind of special features. But this was kind of in his early 90s before his resurgence with Pulp Fiction, where John Travolta is playing like a social worker character who's taking care of a young Joey Lawrence. He gets in over his head with like a gang. Once he gets kind of kidnapped by this gang, he tries to rescue him. So it's kind of like a social worker justice, like trying to get this kid back safe from harm from this gang. You have Benjamin Bratt with his original nose, which I did not know he had a nose job, but it's very clear once you see Benjamin Bratt here that he looked a lot different before he got popular. Hector Elizondo is pretty great in this as well. John Travolta does a fine job. This is just kind of one of those mindless dramas where you kind of put it on a lazy weekend afternoon. It's not good, but it's also not horrible. It's just kind of like that middle of the road, entertaining, mindless, and with like some stars you like, and it just all kind of wraps up how you expect it to. It's pretty fun overall. I liked it, I think, more than most people. So check it out if you like Travolta or just kind of like those silly, just like over the top gang movies where it's just like a white man saving everyone. No special features at all, and this is from an older master, but it's still a pretty solid master. Even without a new scan, I think it looks nice. There's specks here and there of age, but overall it's handled very well. So Chains of Gold. If it sounds interesting, check it out. We have a re-release here. We have Rolling Vengeance, which came out, I believe, in like 2017 on Blu-ray from Kino, and I'll talk about that here in a second. You get a new slipcover, and the film, this is not a new restoration, but before I get into all that, Rolling Vengeance is just a revenge tale about a young guy whose some of his family members get killed by some hooligans around town, and he builds this massive monster truck to start taking them out. And there's like a drill on the front, there's flames at the top. It's a huge monster truck, like jacking up stuff, just destroying everything, running over cars, running through buildings. If that sounds fun to you, like, it delivers on what you want. So if you've seen like Roadhouse and you like the scene where that big monster truck runs over like the cars and goes through the building, if you want a whole movie of that, Rolling Vengeance is that movie. There are things I was very frustrated with by the movie, like, hey, if you're being run off the road by some gang, like a gang of hooligans, just put on your brakes. Don't try to outrun them. How about that? But besides that, if you don't want to like implement logic, it's a fun time, and it does exactly what it needs to do. Some very phallic imagery here. You have Ned Beatty being deliciously over the top in a villainous role, which is always fun. Good times. It's an older transfer. It's in pretty good shape. It's not perfect. It's a little crackly here and there. So the audio is not great. I thought it was a little hollow sounding, but it's passable, but it's not been refreshed in any way. In terms of this re-release, I believe that the original was on a Blu-ray 25. This has been on a Blu-ray 50, so get a little bit more room for compression to kind of resolve better. I don't have the original release to know how big of a difference that would make. And you do get subtitles on this release, which I have read that was not on the original release, so there are reasons to upgrade this, including this nice slipcover and stuff, but if you already have it, it's marginal upgrade at best. But if you don't have if you need subtitles, definitely get this one. A new Blu-ray release that I was excited to get to was Below the Belt, because this is a type of movie from like the 70s, I believe, or 1980. This is the type of movie that I'm just like, man, we used to be cooking, because like just a movie about like lady wrestlers and like a woman trying to get into the wrestling field and like her journey of that sounds great to me. And overall it's pretty good. I wish there could have been a bit more camaraderie between the women and kind of like building that community, because even after this whole journey, they seem pretty isolated from one another. They were like friendly, but I would have liked to have a little bit more heart to go with kind of this kind of underdog story of just like a woman going from a waitress to a wrestling, like not star, but like an assured wrestler. But it's fun if the premise intrigues you. This isn't going in the exploitation route, which I know, according to some Letterboxd reviews I read, did not please a lot of people. But if you want like a pretty solid drama about like women in wrestling, below the belt, it's a pretty decent time. I enjoyed it. This does not note as being from a new master. It does have a little bit of age and stuff, so it's not a perfect looking master. But just to have this on Blu-ray, it's a win, I think. You do get commentary track, but no other special features besides like some trailers. This one, new Blu-ray release. If it sounds good to you, check it out. Another Blu-ray debut is First Love with William Catt and Susan Day. You have some other good actors here as well, which I'll get into, including Beverly D'Angelo and John Hurt, I believe, Robert Loggia, John Hurd, sorry, and Swoosie Kurtz. Too many Johns. And you're lucky I didn't say William Hurt. So John Hurt from Home Alone. First Love, it's a love story. It's about these college-age kids. The guy he comes across a girl that he finds just like impossibly beautiful and alluring. They start kind of like, he pursues her, and they start to have a nice budding relationship, but obstacles kind of get in their way, including like an older man who she was seeing and other kind of people in the fray that kind of like all these conflicts are coming into play, and put all the odds are against this couple and how it's all eventually going to work out or not. So if you love kind of like a classic love story with some obstacles, First Love, it does the trick. It's not like the best romance I've ever seen, but it's pretty solid, and I'm a sucker for these types of movies, so I was in for the whole experience. This comes from a 2021 master by Paramount Pictures. This is a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. It does look very nice. Grain seems organic. It doesn't seem overly noisy. The damage has been cleaned up a lot. It's just a really nice organic looking transfer. You do get an audio commentary from star William Catt and film critic and historian Lee Gambin, the late Lee Gambin, who this is dedicated to and on the disc as well. So whenever his commentary tracks run out that he had banked, I really miss hearing his insights because he was just one of the best commentators that we had. So First Love, definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of romance films. This next one, I was definitely looking forward to because I'm a big fan of TV movies. This is a two-part movie of Fatal Vision. This is one, I do frequent the Blu-ray forums. This was one title that kind of drove me crazy because there was at least one user on there who would ask about this film like every couple of months, even after it was announced. And I was just like, we will get it, and it is here. And I think that person will be very pleased. This is it's a true crime tale based on a real life murder of like army doctor, I believe, his wife and his kids. It was months after kind of the Manson murders were happening, and he kind of blamed it on that type of individual. And it's that investigation as to whether his family was killed by a bunch of like hippie, drug addict, killer Manson family types, or if the more simple solution is he killed them and he's making stuff up. And it's kind of like exploring that and what actually happened that night. It is 3 hours long because it's a 2-night event. So it's just like 3 hours and 4 minutes long. 2 parts. So the first part, you do get like an end credit sequence, and it goes right into the second part. But it really holds its own throughout this. You do have Carl Malden in the lead role. Gary Cole is the suspect / victim, like the victim's husband. You have Andy Griffith in a very small role, Eva Marie Saint, Barry Newman. A lot of good people in here doing great work. If you love TV movies, this is one of the best ones that I've seen. It really just like, it keeps going throughout all 3 hours. I love kind of courtroom dramas, investigative dramas. This isn't going into the realm of the lurid and thriller-ish. It's just more kind of investigative, and which I really love, and I was locked in. This comes from a new 4K scan of the original camera negative. Looks fantastic. It sounds really good as well. I think anyone who like loves TV movies will be very, very pleased by Fatal Vision. It's a really great release from Kino. I welcome all the TV movies that they want to release. I'm a sucker for them. So Fatal Vision, definitely check that out. Next we have the Blu-ray debut, I believe, of Aces High. This is a pretty solid one. With you have Christopher Plummer, Malcolm McDowell, Simon Ward, and this is the reversible cover art here that I've moved around for you, and there's the back again, and then you can see the inside here, and the original cover art that I switched around there. This is set around the First World War. It is a anti-war tale of focuses on the Air Force and in England, and our point of view character is this young kid who's very excited to kind of get into the Air Force division, and kind of he's like really bright-eyed and really excited, and he learns like quickly once he's there that this is a unit that is not long for this world. People are just dying, and they're just like sending recruits who are pretty much not really ready into like fly and like basically be sent to their death. And there's a lot of people who are remaining there that they've really just become kind of disillusioned with the whole event, and it's just kind of this like interesting examination of war in World War One, where just seeing what these pilots are going through, how they're feeling, how it affects them mentally, all this stuff. I really liked it, and there's some really great aerial sequences as well. They do borrow some shots from other films, but overall this is a really like nicely made aerial drama that does have some like social commentary behind it, which I appreciate. You do get a studio canal restoration. Looks pretty solid. There are some material that's shot outside that isn't as clear as some of the interior material, probably due to how it was filmed, but overall it's a really nice restoration by Studio Canal. You do get a commentary track, 2 interviews, and a restoration comparison to see what they were working with and to what we actually got on disc. They did a really nice job with that. So fans of World War I films, Ace is high. It's a good one. It's not just mindless. There's some depth behind it. Not as much depth behind it. It is the Blu-ray re-release of My Favorite Spy with Bob Hope and Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr is fantastic, and is probably the reason you are watching this, because she helped invent Wi-Fi. So check that out. My Favorite Spy, it is a Bob Hope tale where like Bob Hope is like kind of mistaken identity. He's mistaken for this kind of criminal man by the police early on, and then he is sent undercover as that criminal to kind of get the information on like this big crime that's going to go down that really needs to be avoided if everyone's going to remain safe. And he gets to try to convince the guy's ex-girl that he is him, and kind of there's all this kind of stuff going on. It's a comedy for Hope. There's a lot of like fun that he has with like the mistaken identities and not being in over his head in this criminal plot. He's just kind of like an entertainer, and he's just like faking it till he makes it, and he's a scaredy cat. For the most part, I'm kind of I get a little bit annoyed by Bob Hope and his persona and all that good stuff. So this wasn't the most laugh out loud endeavor. There were things that I was amused by, but it's kind of saved by this bonkers finale that kind of goes into like a Charlie Chaplin-esque mode, where there's like a car chase and there's people hanging from branches that are swinging around, and there's fire ladders that are like stretched out, and it's hilarious. It's great. And Hedy Lamarr kind of makes up for some of the deficiencies of like Bob Hope, in my opinion. If you're a Bob Hope fan, I think you're going to love it. It's just, for me personally, I'm not the biggest Bob Hope fan, and even I found things to enjoy about it, even if I wasn't over the moon about it. This was previously released by Olive Films back in the day, like 2013 or so. This is a new re-release. It comes from a 2020 master by Paramount Pictures from a 4K scan. It does have a commentary track, and that's it. But you do get a commentary track and a new master. So if you're a Bob Hope fan and you do have it on Blu-ray, it's probably worth double dipping just for it to look better and for you to get some special features. All right, I'm about to go down a Alan Ladd run. The first one is Alan Ladd in Red Mountain with Elizabeth Scott, who I do quite enjoy. This is kind of a Western tale, but set in the times of the Civil War. It's kind of like it's melding both of the Western elements and the Civil War elements of like the Union and Confederate soldiers, who is right and what side, who's fighting for what causes, all that kind of stuff. And how loyalties shift and understandings come to happen over the course of this, like a good woman kind of like setting someone straight. But you also have Arthur Kennedy, John Ireland. This is directed by William Dieterle. This is solid, not spectacular. It's not very like it doesn't stand out, but in terms of like westerns, it's fine. I like Alan Ladd pretty well, which is a good thing considering I have so many of his titles. But if you've been wanting it, if you know you like Alan Ladd, you've been wanting it, it's a pretty good release. It comes from a 2021 master from Paramount. It's a 4K scan of the original RGB nitrate original negatives. And it looks nice. It's the nice, vibrant Western expanses. You do get a solid audio track, not a lot of crackles or anything like that. It all holds up very well. And you do get an audio commentary from Sam Deegan, who I really love. So this is a pretty good release for this film if you're an Alan Ladd fan. Continuing his work, we have him with James Mason in Botany Bay. James Mason plays a wonderful bastard who is taking a group of prisoners to kind of colonize Australia. And Alan Ladd is one of those prisoners who may or may not actually deserve to be there. But does James Mason care? Hell no, he doesn't. So the first half of this movie is just like a ship drama, like on the ocean, on this trip to Australia. Which is pretty interesting. You also have like some romances budding and everything, and then you actually get to Australia, and then more drama happens, and it all just kind of like unravels from there. It's a pretty solid drama. Once again, it doesn't like stand out as one of the great films of the 1950s, but if you like these performers and you like the old 50s dramas like this, Botany Bay does the trick. This comes from a 2021 master from Paramount, 4K scan. Looks really nice, holds up very well, not a lot of lingering scratches or anything like that. Maybe a few specks here and there. Audio is also pretty solid. Didn't notice anything major with that. If you're a fan of Alan Ladd, check out Botany Bay. Continuing Alan Ladd, but in a going into a trio of films, one of which is not Alan Ladd. We have the newest Dark Side of Cinema 20XX here. So these have been going a while, and from what it looks like, they're only going to continue. My next one is also this series. So we have 2020 or 20 here, and we have, and since there's three, I'll kind of go by these pretty quickly. We have Captain Carey USA here. There's the interior there. We have Appointment with Danger, which I have covered previously on the imprint, the Australian company Imprint's release of the Essential Film Noir Volume 4. And that release seems to be pretty similar to this one, except there's a little bit more special features, but the same scan. And then you have Make Haste to Live, the one without Alan Ladd, but you do get Dorothy McQuire and Stephen McNally, Edgar Buchanan. So going through these pretty quickly. Alan Ladd, it's a wartime drama noir of like a man learning that he was kind of betrayed in the past, and kind of like he had kind of a misunderstanding that like he's trying to figure out who is kind of like the mole within this kind of agency. Appointment with Danger I've talked about before, but this is Alan Ladd in kind of a postal department service, trying to like a postal agent trying to take down like a criminal ring. And Make Haste to Live is about a woman who has in the past married a criminal unbeknownst to her, and then he went to jail, and 20-ish years later he is getting out of prison and trying to seek her out, and she now has a grown daughter, and that all kind of resolves and stuff. So all these are pretty solid. Some of them are questionable in terms of if they should be considered noir, but they're all pretty interesting. And I liked all of them. These all come from new 4K scans, and they look pretty nice. They do have like little bits of nicks and scratches and specks here and there, but overall they're good. Each get a commentary track. So the Film Noir series keeps holding up. So I will keep watching them as they keep putting them out. And they do keep putting them out, including number 21. I keep wanting to turning this into years. But 21, we have Cloak and Dagger, which is a Fritz Lang tale. You get Gary Cooper, who is fantastic always. And that's the interior. Second title, we have Shack Out on 101. This one, you have a Lee Marvin and Keenan Wynn, and Frank Lovejoy, Terry Moore. And this one is pretty solid. The next one is, what I want to say is directed by James Cagney. That is Shortcut to Hell. So James Cagney's only directorial feature. And you have Robert Ivers and Georgianne Johnson. So here you have like some more spy intrigue and double crosses, and Shortcut to Hell, I believe, is actually a remake of This Gun for Hire, which starred Alan Ladd. So this is a remake. So we nearly had another Alan Ladd title here. So all of these are pretty interesting as well. They are also from 4K scans. Each get a commentary track, and yeah, these just, they could keep putting out. They're pretty similar to the other set. Some nicks and specs here and there, but overall pretty consistent transfers that I think people will appreciate. Another Blu-ray upgrade, a previous Olive Films title, Body and Soul from 1947. This has been remade before, and I've covered that, like some remakes on the channel, but this is the Body and Soul with John Garfield and Lily Palmer. So this is a boxing drama about a lowly boxer who is convinced to try to make it for the big times. He starts to become changed with fame, and then it's him trying to get back to who he was, and like he starts leaving his people behind while he gets wrapped up in the trappings of fame, and it's just kind of wrestling with that, wanting to be a somebody when you're a nobody, and how that kind of impacts you once you are a somebody. This holds up very well. It's a pretty solid boxing drama and morality drama. There are some frustrating points, but that goes with the territory of the narrative. It works out very well. This is from Robert Rossen. Like I said, this was a previous Olive Films release about in the early 2010s, like 2013, 2014. This is a new master from Paramount. It's a 4K scan. It looks very nice. I do not have the original Blu-ray to compare this to, but this Blu-ray does look very nice and natural. So judging how I've seen some of those early Olive Films titles, I think this would be a pretty nice upgrade. I know a lot of those didn't have subtitles as well. This does. You also get an audio commentary track from Alan K. Rhodey. So nice upgrade for Body and Soul fans, if you're a fan. My next title is an upgrade for a previously released Kino title. That is Burn Witch Burn, just in time for spooky season. If you want your witchy stuff going on, this one's a fun one. About a professor who is married to a woman who he learns is a witch, who claims that she's kind of responsible for a lot of his success, and this is one of the few that I did not switch out the reversible cover art, and he kind of has a hard time believing that his wife is actually a witch, and definitely that his success is owed to him, and how the battle between what can be proven by the mind and what can be felt by the heart is sometimes at odds with one another. Intuition versus knowledge and understanding. The tragic consequences of if you do not kind of trust women. So Burn Witch Burn, it's a pretty fun witchy time. It's very eerie a lot of the time. As you saw, this is also called Night of the Eagle. Alternatively, if you can't find it, it'll be under that title. You do have Janet Blair, Peter Wingard, and Margaret Johnston. Good time. This was previously released on Blu-ray by Kino. I have that title. I watched it a couple years ago, and I did quite enjoy it. This is from a new 4K master from Studio Canal, from the original camera negative. It is a nice improvement from that Blu-ray. They clean up a lot of the damage. Darks, like contrast is handled better. Blacks are more deep, and like there's more nuance within like the textures of the production design and all that. The highlights are kind of handled more favorably. Overall, just a nice upgrade that I think this title deserved. The only thing with a 4K restoration from Studio Canal, it's very suspicious they didn't go all out for a 4K release. So with their 4K output as of late, I would not be shocked if this got a 4K release at some time. But for now, this is the best way to watch it. Going to one of the imprints for a second, we have a milestone release of The Dragon Painter. This is a silent film from 1919, I believe. Yes, it is. This is a tale of a man who lives in a village who is kind of thought to be a little out there because he believes that his lover was like taken by this dragon and like hidden away, and he kind of like is like looking for her every day. Like this has been going on for apparently like hundreds of years in his mind. He paints to try to like make things right. And he is known by this actual master painter who tries to recruit him to kind of be his successor. But his daughter is kind of mistaken for his missing lover. And it kind of it's a whole dramatic tale of like his crazed kind of like love for his missing wife, and how this kind of entangles with like this this other girl and like their love and the desire of the parents, and how this all kind of interact. Like this is a pretty solid and unique silent film that I was glad to kind of be able to check out, because a lot of the silent films I check out are kind of get to be a little bit of the same after a while, with some of the same directors being released over and over recently. This one's pretty interesting, and I'm glad Milestone saved it. This is a really good presentation. It was a new restoration that combines a couple different sources, some tinted, some not, and like all of it combined to make the ultimate presentation of this movie, and it's handled very well. You do get 2 different scores to choose from. The one I listened to the most was a little bit distracting at times, but other times it fit very well. So I need to listen more dedicated to the other score to see which one I prefer. There are actually 2 more films starring our main actor here. You have His Birthright from 1918, also starring Setsu Hayakawa, and then you also have The Man Beneath from 1919 starring him. You also get a 66-minute documentary on the reconstruction of this whole deal. So this is a really jam-packed release for a early silent era effort that I did not know about, but I'm very glad to. This is why I love physical media, just getting some of these things on my radar. The next up, we have Raro's release of Madness, which is quite interesting. This is a tale. It's an Italian tale of an escaped prisoner who goes to this kind of like country house to get this loot that he saved, or he put away before he was captured. And there's this couple and the woman's sister who are going out to have like a weekend getaway at the same house, and they end up getting taken captive. And like the sister, she's a very sexually aggressive and promiscuous, like she's having an affair with her sister's husband, and she throws herself into capture very much. She's like naked like 80% of this movie. It's very like this Italian film really went for it. It's very kind of like going towards the exploitation of the whole endeavor, and just how the kind of the shifting, like this prisoner who has escaped, he may not necessarily be the worst person to come out of this situation, and just how that kind of evolves. I love the ending of this. It's really, I think it ended very well, and I thought they weren't going to do a certain thing, and then they did, and I was like, okay, this works for me. Fernando De Leo, he's an interesting director. There's been a couple films from Raro from him. And this new Blu-ray does come from a restoration from Raro. It's handled very well. You get an audio commentary by film historian Troy Howarth and a trailer. So if you like Italian crime films, Madness is a fun time. Now I'm heading down. We had our Alan Ladd stretch. Now we have our Brigitte Bardot stretch. We have a trio of films from Brigitte Bardot. We have Naughty Girl, which is the earliest effort. Just a very young Brigitte Bardot. I was like a young kid who, like teenage / late teenager, who is her father is kind of like a criminal. She ends up being under the care of this other kind of criminal entertainer person, and she kind of makes his life hell just because she's very starts to be like sexually aggressive and trying, like, he's engaged to be married and she's kind of like tempting him and flirting with him, and like she does a lot of really dumb stuff in terms of like self-preservation, but that's also pretty amusing at times. Brigitte Bardot is so young in this; she's kind of almost unrecognizable compared to what she was in some of her other films that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about all these films real quick as a trio. The next one I'm going to talk about is Les Femmes, which is Brigitte Bardot, a little bit older, becoming a secretary for this author who is kind of like in a dry spell. He's like he has kind of like had it with women, and she's kind of like supposed to kind of like help him get back like his inspiration or right with women. And so there's a lot of the author telling his exploits with his various women over the years, and they're kind of dynamic in the future or in the present, where he's kind of like building something with Brigitte Bardot's character and how that eventually ends up, which I appreciate how this ends up in the end, and it just kind of made things feel a little bit more natural. And her last film I'm going to talk about is 2 Weeks in September, which is more of a light affair where it's just Brigitte Bardot like going out of town, like I believe to the United States for, or maybe it's just England for a couple weeks, and she starts this love affair with this guy, and it's just kind of like a reluctant love affair type of thing. So these three films, it makes you like understand that Brigitte Bardot is a massive talent. She really elevates these films with just her playful nature and just kind of what she's able to accomplish in these films. I really admire. Some I thought were had a little bit more depth than others. I think the most engaging one is Les Femmes. The most playful one is Naughty Girl. And 2 Weeks in September is fun. It's just a little bit more melodramatic and just not as satisfying. And it just kind of ends in a way that I didn't think really brought it all together. But in terms of representation for Brigitte Bardot on Blu-ray, it's much needed, and they look very nice. These are all from restorations from Studio Canal. They all look pretty solid, but with some caveats. Like Naughty Girl, I saw like some like flicker here and there. It's probably inherent to the original photography. All of these have, well, I would say Les Femmes mostly. A little bit of 2 Weeks in September. Not as much Naughty Girl. There's a strong yellow tint. I think people who are familiar with Blu-ray restorations with overseas, like Retrovita restorations especially, they also often call that like piss yellow like sheen. So Les Femmes, I think, suffers the most of that. It's like a very golden transfer, which I didn't love. It's not the worst, but I wish it could have been a little bit more natural. But these restorations from Studio Canal, that's how it stood out. But overall, I think these all are pretty nice restorations. You do get, each one gets a commentary track. They all, let's see, okay, they're from different people. So one you get Sam Deegan, one you get Manuela Luzic, and then on one you get Adrian Martin. So 3 Brigitte Bardot tales. If you're a fan of Brigitte, there you go, worth checking out. Heading down the final 4K stretch, we have the 4K domestic debut of the classic comedy, The Ladykillers, the original Ladykillers, not the one from the Coen brothers, which is Trapped in Disney Jail. This is the original. Alec Guinness and Peter Sellers, Danny Green, really amusing classic British title about some thieves who start to board at this older lady's house. They want to pull off a heist, and she starts to mess things up for her. Just unbeknownst to her, she's just a kindly old lady, but she really messes up their whole deal. It's a lot of fun. It's amusing. And if you love this film, I think this is a really nice presentation. This does come up from a 4K restoration of the from Studio Canal in Dolby Vision, so no SDR here. And it looks very nice, nice resolved grain and everything like that. I think it overall just looks very good. 2 commentary tracks, 2 aspect ratios on the Blu-ray, only 1 aspect ratio on the 4K disc. You also get an interview, a documentary, and so yeah, a good number of special features and versions to watch, and just a nice 4K presentation. So if you like the Ladykillers, definitely check out this 4K release. Another 4K release from Studio Canal. We got Link, which was wild, and I had never heard of this movie beforehand. But if you like the idea of a monkey who is dressed in human clothes terrorizing a young Elisabeth Shue, and for a little while Terrence Stamp, this is your film. So Elisabeth Shue goes to work as kind of an assistant role slash like housekeeper role for Terrence Stamp, and Link, which is the name of this orangutan who is like trained and to do all kinds of stuff, like kind of like a butler at times, but also just kind of just a advanced ape. We kind of get Link slowly starting to terrorize her more and more, and just how she's going to get, like, there's a lot of apes and orangutans and chimpanzees and stuff around the house, and how Elisabeth Shue is going to get out alive. If animal attack movies interest you, there's a lot of really cool practical effects in here in terms of how they get the apes to act and the orangutans to kind of accomplish their stunts. It works very well, and it's not the best movie. It's very kind of like trashy overall, but if you like kind of these types of movies, it delivers. This is a 4K restoration from Studio Canal in SDR, so no high dynamic range. So I've talked about that previously. So if that's a deal breaker, I've never had this on Blu-ray, but this does look very nice. I had heard previously that there was a problem with the previous Blu-ray release, including a mono track when there should be a stereo track. That has not been rectified here. It is still the mono track, and the audio does suffer for that. So I just want people to be aware of that this mono track still doesn't sound great, and it's not what it's supposed to be, but it has not been fixed. You do get a commentary track, a couple of deleted scenes, an audition, introduction, or interviews. So Link, it's the best it's looked on 4K, but also the audio has not been fixed, so that's kind of a little bit of a disappointment for what could have been a pretty solid release. And finally, we have a 4K upgrade of Murder on the Orient Express, the 1974 version from Sidney Lumet, with Albert Finney as Poirot. This has a all-star cast including Ingrid Bergman, Martin Balsam, Lauren Bacall, Jacqueline Bisset, Jean-Pierre Cassel, Sean Connery, Wendy Hiller, Anthony Perkins, Vanessa Redgrave, Richard Widmark, Michael York. So many people in this film. It's based on the classic Agatha Christie novel. It is adapted pretty authentically. I've seen the Kenneth Branagh version. In terms of execution, I think this is executed a little bit better because of Lumet's direction, and some of the performances, they're not as distracting as they are in the Kenneth Branagh version. But overall, pretty solid adaptation. I've been watching a lot of Sidney Lumet films. This isn't one of my, this year especially, this is not my favorite of the bunch, but it's a pretty solid presentation of this story. It's about as good as you could expect it to be. My favorite performer of this one is Lauren Bacall. She has some great zingers and one-liners that are very cutting. It's fantastic. So this has been previously released on Blu-ray by Paramount a couple of years ago for the first time. I bought that release. It was pretty cheap. It was like $10 or less. I had never watched it. I never got around to it. I was planning on it, and then they announced this 4K was coming out, and I was like, of course, because they seem to be upgrading all these Blu-rays that I bought from Paramount when they were dirt cheap, like the Hunted and other titles that are just like getting like Snake Eyes is coming out soon. So learned my lesson with Paramount, so I just need to wait for someone to upgrade these to 4K, which I did watch it in 4K in Dolby Vision. Comparing it, I did dig out my old Blu-ray, massive upgrade from that old dated Blu-ray. This is from a 4K scanner, the original 35mm camera negative in Dolby Vision. Beautiful, bold colors, nice resolved grain. The encoding's pretty solid. There's things here and there that could be improved, but overall it's a pretty decent encode. And the soundtrack sounds good as well. You do get a commentary track, a 49-minute making of, and some interviews. So Murder on the Orient Express, worth checking out. This version, if you're a fan, I think the restoration worked out very well. So those are our Kino releases for this past month. Make sure to check those out from either Kino or your favorite indie distributor like Orbit or Diabolic or Grindhouse. All these titles, they're very much worth checking out in different capacities. Use your own judgment. But thank you for watching. I appreciate you tuning in. Let me know which title I talked about that you're most interested in checking out. Let me know if there's other titles you would want me to speak about on future episodes. I put these out every week, so make sure you're subscribed to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel. Share this with anyone you think would be interested in more physical media in their life. I appreciate you tuning in every week. I'm so grateful. I will see you again next week with a fresh batch of titles. But until next time, enjoy these movies.